Hi, Shane here. You're watching Sam for God. This is Mark. Check her out.
So hi guys, how are you doing? As you guys probably know, I go to Disneyland Paris very often. I'm an annual pass holder, so I go pretty much every month, which is a bit crazy, I know, but it means that I've pretty much experienced Disneyland Paris in every single season of the year. And normally I try and go when it's quieter because I just don't like it when it's too busy, because it makes it harder to get on rides and harder to meet characters because it's just so busy. But sometimes, you know, you want to go in the summer holidays. You want to go when everybody else is there, or sometimes that's your only choice. I mean, the weather's a lot nicer in the summer and normally there's a lot more going on as well, so some people make the choice to go in the summer holidays. And not even just summer holidays, Christmas times can be very busy as well. Apparently the most busy time at Disneyland Paris is actually like between Christmas and New Year's Eve. I've never been there myself during that time, but it's meant to be crazily busy. And so in this video I want to give you tips on how to get on the 3 most popular rides at Disneyland Paris without queuing too much. Now that's the key word, because you will probably always have to queue for them at least a little bit, but that's kind of what you expect when you go to any theme park really. But hopefully my tips will help you find ways to just not queue for as long as some of these rides have queues for normally. Okay, so before we start with this video, let's go through a list of the top 3 most popular rides in Disneyland Paris. Thunder Mountain in Disneyland Park, Crush's Coaster in the studios, and Ratatouille. These 3 rides are the rides that always have at least an hour-long queue. Even when you go during quiet times of the year, they'd have queues, like at least 40 minutes or something, probably more. And the busy peak times, they can have queues up to like 2.5 to 3 hour long, and nobody wants to do that really. So yeah, I'm going to go through each of these rides separately and let you know what I think you should do to be able to get on them without queuing too much. Let's start with Thunder Mountain because it's in the main park and also the oldest ride of the 3. It's a classic ride. It's my personal favourite ride in the whole of Disneyland Paris and in the whole world really. Now, at the time of filming this video, August of 2016, Thunder Mountain is actually closed in Disneyland Paris for refurbishments, but it will be open in a few months time and it'll be better than ever, which no doubt means even longer queues, but there are many ways around that. So number 1 for Thunder Mountain, get a fast pass. Quick and easy. It's very lucky that one of the most popular rides in Disneyland Paris actually has a fast pass, and the fast pass with Thunder Mountain works. As in, having a fast pass with Thunder Mountain means that you probably won't queue for longer than 10 minutes or something, if that. And the fast passes at Disneyland Paris are free. Anyone can get one. So my first advice for Thunder Mountain would be to do that. Don't feel like you have to rush to Frontierland to like be able to go on the ride first thing in the morning, because a lot of people do that and I just don't think it's necessary at all. Like, instead just kind of casually go to Frontierland, you know, have that be the first thing you do when you go in the park, no matter what time you get in the park. It doesn't have to be the earliest the park opens. It can be like 11 o'clock. Just casually walk towards Frontierland, go to the fast pass place for Thunder Mountain and get yourself a fast pass. That does mean obviously that you can't be too picky as to when you can go on the ride, because, you know, they might only have fast passes for like the evening time, but as long as you don't mind what time you go on the ride, I think that's the nicest and easiest way to go on Thunder Mountain. And it's casual, it's worth it, and you can even get more than 1 fast pass a day, but obviously you have to go on it first to be able to get another fast pass. But you know, say if you go on it at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, then you can get another fast pass to go on it again at like 5 o'clock or something. The next tip for Thunder Mountain, if you don't want to bother with fast passes, is to go either just before, during, or just after the parade, which at the moment I believe is at 5:30 in the afternoon at Disneyland Paris. Now obviously if you're only there for 1 day, you probably want to watch the parade, so you're not going to be able to do this. But if you're there for a few days, you know, and you've already seen the parade, you're planning on seeing another day, one of those days just spend the time when most people are hanging about on Main Street or in front of the castle just waiting for the parade to go on Thunder Mountain instead. Normally at that time, Thunder Mountain and pretty much every ride in the park tends to have a very short queue, so I doubt you'll have to wait longer than 20 minutes or so if you go during that time. And my last tip for Thunder Mountain is to do it just before Dreams. Now, Dreams is a nighttime fireworks, laser, water show at the moment in Disneyland Paris that always happens at park closing time. So depending on what time the park closes, which is different depending on what time you go, so like in the summer it can be open until 11 o'clock at night, in the winter it can close at like 8 o'clock. But yeah, it's always the last thing that happens in the park and then everybody has to leave. Fantasyland normally gets shut about an hour before Dreams because they need that area to prepare for the fireworks. However, because Thunder Mountain is situated in Frontierland, it's lucky because it still runs until just before Dreams. So again, if you're not too bothered about having the best space, the best viewing spot for Dreams, go on Thunder Mountains just before Dreams. I promise you it will have very, very minimal queues. And it's actually kind of fun doing Thunder Mountain in the evening at night time when it's very dark. It's probably my favourite time to go on the ride actually. And to be honest, if you kind of time it well, if you try and go on Thunder Mountain say at like 10:30 for instance, if the park closes at 11 PM, you'll probably be off the ride by 10:45 and you can actually go and watch Dreams as well. You won't have the best view for Dreams, but you don't really need the best view necessarily. You can still watch it from pretty much anywhere in the park, especially if you've seen it before. Right, so that's Thunder Mountain done. Next ride I want to talk about is Ratatouille. Ratatouille is a very popular ride. It only opened like, what, in 2014, so 2 years ago. I was actually there in Disneyland Paris on its opening, and oh my god, it was so busy that day, understandably. But a lot of people thought, oh, it's going to be crazily busy for the first few months of its opening and then it's going to die down. No. 2 years on, it's still very popular, it's still very busy, it's still very common to see queues of at least an hour and a half for it, normally 2 hours. Everybody wants to go on the ride, and it's understandable because it's a very good ride and it's a family ride. It's one of those rides that anyone can go on and enjoy together. Now, Ratatouille also does fast passes, so what I've seen a lot of people do is to wait by the gates of the Disney Studios, Walt Disney Studios, before it opens in the morning, and like literally rush to the Ratatouille area and go and queue up to get fast passes. And I don't blame them, because fast passes for that ride do run out very quickly. So if you go and try and get a fast pass at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's very doubtful that there'll be any left for that day. But it's also a very crazy thing to do. Like, I mean, if you really want to do it, but I don't think it's worth it. Like, I've seen poor dads, bless them, run to the fast pass area to get tickets in the morning, and they end up having to queue for like half an hour or something just to get a fast pass. And I think there are easier ways to get to go on that ride. But obviously the fast pass is one of the tips if you want to do it, and if you manage to do it, then great. But my first tip for Ratatouille would be to do it as a single rider. Now, Ratatouille is one of the few rides at Disneyland Paris that actually does a single rider queue, and the queue for single rider at Ratatouille is almost always non-existent. Even if you go during the most busy times, like straight bang in the afternoon in summer holidays or something, and decide to do it as a single rider, you probably won't have to queue more than 10 minutes or something. And it's hilarious because the actual general queue for that ride is normally at least 2 hours long. In the afternoon times it can be up to like 3 hours long, and it's just crazy. And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of single rider generally, because especially if you're there with like friends and stuff, you obviously want to experience it together and it's just more fun that way. But with Ratatouille, you really don't need to be there with whoever you're with. Like, it's not the kind of ride that requires you to be with somebody else that you know to enjoy it. Like with roller coasters and big rides, it's more fun to be with friends and stuff because you can scream together and it's exciting. Ratatouille is more of like a full-on 4D experience for yourself, so really it's actually probably better without anybody else. Like, you can just kind of focus on the whole thing on your own, and it's quite a short ride as well. So if you're above the age of like, I don't know, 16 or something, I would definitely recommend doing it single rider. You don't need a person with you, you don't need your friends with you. It's not a scary ride or anything, and it will just save you so much time. And if you're lucky, you might even end up being in the same rat. You probably won't be sat together because that's the point of a single rider queue, but you might be behind each other. That's happened to me and my friends before, and it's fine. I mean, don't count on it, but it could happen, and even if it doesn't, who cares? You don't need your friends for this ride. Now obviously that only works if you're older. If you've got kids in your family and stuff, then this is not the best tip because they can't go on their own. So for people who are there with their families or with little children, my best tip for Ratatouille would be to do it just before the park closes. I've seen this myself several times, and it's ridiculous how much shorter the queues are for that ride in the evening, like maybe an hour or half an hour before the park's meant to close. Literally on my most recent trip back in July 2016, I walked past Ratatouille, I think it must have been around 8:30 in the evening, so just like half an hour before the park was meant to close, and the queue for it was like 25 minutes or something, and this was on a Saturday in the middle of July, so a typically quite busy time of year. I mean, it's a weekend as well, and yet at that time of evening, 25-minute queue for Ratatouille. Now, I didn't go on it because I'd already been on it with a fast pass, with a hotel fast pass that I had, but it's a great time to go. And if like you're worried that your kids might be asleep by then, don't be. Just somehow keep them awake and have them nap during the day so they can kind of stay up for the evening and go on it then. It just makes life easier for you. And obviously the studios, just like the main park, has different closing times. So in the summer holidays it's open until about 9 PM, but in the winter months it closes at around like 5 or 6, so quite early actually. So again, that's probably easier for you. Then you can kind of try and go on it maybe at 5:45 when the park is meant to close at 6. And all the rides in the studios will be functioning until the closing time. So when they tell you that the park shuts at like 6 PM, that means 6 PM is when all the rides stop working. So right up until 1 minute to 6, you're allowed to go and queue up for rides. So that's a good tip to know. Anyway, the last very popular ride at Disneyland Paris that I want to talk about is of course Crush's Coaster. Now Crush's Coaster is also situated in the Walt Disney Studios in Disneyland Paris, and this one's a bit more tricky because they don't even do fast passes for this one. So a lot of people think that the best way to get on this ride is to wait outside the gate in the morning and then run to it as soon as it opens. And again, my advice is to not do that, because that's what everybody else thinks. You might think you're clever, and you are in a way, but everybody else has the same thought process and they also think they're clever, which means everyone's rushing towards that ride in the morning, which makes it a bit pointless because it ends up having very long queues from the very start. Now they do a single rider for Crush's Coaster, but the single rider for Crush's Coaster, guys, is not worth it. I've never done it, but I've seen the queue times for it, and it's not uncommon to see signs that say Crush's Coaster, general queue 2 hours, single rider queue 1 hour and 45 minutes. What's the point? It's literally like a 15-minute difference. Why would you choose to go single rider when it takes nearly the same amount of time as a general queue? I find it very pointless. The single rider queue for Crush's Coaster, I feel like it just does not work. I mean, sometimes in the quieter months it might be useful if you want to try it then, but generally speaking it's pretty much the same as queuing for it normally, because the queues are still long even for single rider. So for Crush's Coaster, my best tip, and I've done this myself twice, is to go on it just before the park closes. It works wonders. Like, if you watch my vlogs from May 2016 and July of 2016, I managed to go on Crush's Coaster on both trips literally 10 minutes before the park was meant to close, and I didn't have to queue for more than like 15 minutes. And this is an insane amount of time to wait when you think about it, because all throughout the day, that ride in particular, Crush's Coaster, has at least 1 hour and a half, 2 hours of queue. And yet, just before the park closes, in the last like half an hour, it drops down to 15 minutes. And it's just like, oh my god, this is amazing. You literally feel so happy. Like, I watch my vlogs and you'll see how excited I feel. Back when I went in July with my friend Lisa, we'd just been on Tower of Terror at around maybe 8:45, and we just got off and I was like, oh my god, we've got 15 minutes before the park closes. We need to go on Crush, because I knew that the queue times would be very low. So we literally ran from Tower of Terror to Crush, and we got to Crush's queue at like 8:50, 10 to 9, and the park closed at 9. So we were like, please, can we go on there? And they were like, yeah, of course, you've got 10 minutes, you know, just join the queue. And I was so happy. Literally, it just makes such a difference, especially when you walk around the park in the day and you see how long the queues are and you see how long people are queuing for. You just feel so happy that you didn't have to do that. And it means you don't have to like go in a single rider queue or run towards the queue in the morning or do anything ridiculous like that. You can just calmly go on the ride just before the park closes and enjoy it without having to queue for too long. So that is it. These are my tips for getting on the 3 most popular rides at Disneyland Paris without having to endure the very long queues that they normally have. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and leave comments down below. And if you decide to try these tips yourself on your next trip, let me know in the comments, because I'd like to know how it goes for you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more Disneyland Paris videos and Disney videos in general, and I shall see you next time. Bye!